Got it.
Woody had gone right to the police. This would never have happened.
Uh-oh.
So there are liberties being taken. Like, there's going to be an increased amount of shit talk.
Oh, I have to remind myself I'm here willingly.
Catch one with a little bit of attitude, big guy.
Man, you champion son.
It's a kangaroo court.
What do you mean how is the NFL a kangaroo court?
Could you please let me explain why?
No, I don't want to hear this garbage. Give me an answer to the questions I asked you.
What the fuck are we doing?
Come on with it, baby!
Thanks, boy.
I'll talk to you later.
Let's get to the scene.
All right. My undercarriage is sweating. For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
yo, what's up? Welcome to the Thatch. Just kidding. Student Body right here. And as always, my co-host to my left, you're right, but truly
Super excited to be here tonight. Got to get the mic out of my face, so just trying to get this.
Yeah, no one's trying to hear what you
up.
have to say, dude.
Nobody wants to look at my face anyway.
Everybody wants to look at that Brian Bosworth jersey. So
yeah.
Anyway, now that you gave your pleasantries, we got a great guest. We did a little bit of prep here. Yeah, nothing but illustrious guests. It's Matt. It's everything you need.
Nothing you don't.
Yeah, we got welcome to the podcast, Mr.
Alex Brasky.
How you doing, lad? Good to see you, dude. A little technical difficulty, maybe. Oh, there he is. You caught up.
You got me? I think I lost you there for a second.
Now are you in real time now?
We got you. We got you now.
You got me now? How are you, boys?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
So we got a nice a show prepped for you guys. For anybody who's living under the old rock pile, Mr. Alex Brasky, he's with he puts out a great The Last of the Good in-print long-form writing of Bill's Digests. That's coming out 7 major issues a year. They just released the pre-draft issue that hit the media stands. You guys can check that out at all your major networks. I mean, it's a great source of in-depth coverage from a lot of major writers. We do welcome on Kyle Trimble late over in the show. He is a big contributor of that. One of the big things that we like to provide here is unique perspectives from the people that are in there because they've dedicated their life to making the fandom better. Alex, I got to swing to you, man. Welcome to the show. We thank you. Was that the season review comes out in January? What are the chances that we can have that season review this year in February? Do you think we got the team to do it?
I think so. I've thought that for the past few years, though, so I don't know how reliable my opinion is on the topic. I think this team's been in position to win a Super Bowl for the better half of a decade, and I really think that with Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane and company, this is the group to win the Super Bowl. Now, it's easier said than done. They put themselves in position twice to advance to the big game, 2 appearances in the AFC Championship game, obviously the most recent this past season. But I think they need a few pieces to get themselves over the edge. I think it all starts with what myself and Chris Trapasso discussed on Right Here, Right Now, Live Buffalo Football Talk.
Great
Explosiveness.
podcast.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. You need it on both sides of the ball. Explosiveness is the name of the game. for this team moving forward. If they don't have it, I don't think they're going to get past the Chiefs or whoever it is waiting for them in that AFC title game next time around.
Now you say explosiveness and where we get these like discoverable players. A lot of them are there's many ways. We get it through development, we get it through the draft, and we get it through free agency. Do you think there are any lingering pieces out there that are still boots on the ground getting phone calls with that could be added to the St. John Fisher going camping time? Or do you think we're going to discover a lot of that explosivity that you just mentioned? Where do you think? Where's the pit? Where's the well? If you think it's most likely we find this explosiveness that you eloquently spoke about.
Yeah, I think you get it in the draft. I've had my eye on Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. I know
you showed your hand early, man. We're only 3 minutes into this podcast.
I know Isaiah Bond is another player that's come up with some people. He just met with the Bills recently, had dinner with them, and I'm sure that they have their eye on him as well. But it also comes on the defensive side of the ball in the form of Kenneth Grant, perhaps up front, the Michigan defensive tackle, Derek Harmon, another player up front from Oregon that could help fill a need that the Bills have. Also, cornerback Trey Amos, an Ole Miss player.
We love Trey Amos here, man.
I mean, you need to find.
But he's Ole Miss, he's LSU, he's been through the whole SEC, man.
Right. Very well traveled. But yeah, I think it really comes in the draft. I think as far as free agency is concerned, the only players that you're going to find are maybe depth pieces at this point. I think one player to keep an eye on is Rasul Douglas. I know that a lot of people have moved on from him in their minds, but I think with the way that the depth chart sits right now, bringing Christian Benford back on that contract extension that he signed today, I think Rasul Douglas is a player that maybe they look to bring back over the next few weeks or months.
Interesting you bring up Rasul Douglas, man. Rasul Douglas, you're trying to tell me that the door is, not shut with him, and keeping the screen door flapping. Where you at? Is the screen door shut with one Von Miller?
I don't think it should be. I think the way that you've heard him talk this offseason, I think it was at a Pro-Am golf tournament recently. You've heard Brandon Beane discuss it in the media. I don't think the door is closed at all on the opportunity to bring Von Miller back. Now, it would have to be on a very
equitable,
very team-friendly deal, as he agreed to before the start of last season with some restructuring. But I think at this stage of his career, Von Miller has proven everything he's needed to prove. I think what he's looking to do now is advance to a Super Bowl with another team, specifically the team
he doesn't have enough
that he's been working with these past few years. And he mentioned it. Nothing can outdo Josh Allen in terms of going into a team and pairing yourself on the defensive side of the ball with a player like Josh Allen on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's a good fit for Von Miller. I wouldn't close the door at all.
Yeah, and as these older players, they age and stuff like that, you know the grinds of camp. Super producer Tyler actually played football at St. John Fisher. He's very well versed on the environment there. Yeah, the grinds of camp, the dorm life. I know you're a commuter there and all that stuff. We always say here, especially for the older guys, the best you're ever going to feel is when you're in the training room getting your ankles taped for the first time before the first day of contact, right?
Right.
So with that, how is it from a reporting coverage standpoint? Is it fast pace? Is it a wear and grind? Or do you really feel like you develop some real camaraderie within your Buffalo media cohorts because there's so much passion and there is so much robust content to delve into, especially running Bills Digest?
Yeah, I think you touched on it all there. I think that's a pretty good No, I think that's a pretty good way to describe training camp. It really happens in an eye blink, but at the same time, each day in and of itself is a long grind. You start early in the morning. You don't get done until really mid-afternoon with producing all your content. I know some of these folks that work for the local TV stations, they don't get done.
Are you taping your ankles at training camp?
No.
Just because you got to move and shake, you got to get to all the content.
maybe some icy hot here and there on some of the sore spots on the body.
Yeah, ice and stem. Yeah.
No taping.
Well, how do you fuel up? How do you fuel up for training camp? Is the turkey burger really that good? I know that's developed some kind of. I mean, we're Ilya Apollo's people. here. Super producer Ty, he thinks you're actually on something. Ty, what was the food in your playing time?
It was the chicken sandwich all day. What do you think about that? It was a chicken sandwich all
day. Are you
day.
trying to put him on? It's the chicken sandwich? Maybe there's some value.
I don't know if we've had
new dietary treats.
I don't know if we've had the chicken sandwich. Turkey burger, in my opinion, a little overrated, but they've definitely got some good eats out there in terms of college food, in terms of
do you more
college
associate yourself?
Staff, it's delicious.
Yeah. Do you more associate yourself kind of being in that middle ground with Batavia? Do you more associate yourself with wings or the garbage plate?
Both. You can't go wrong with wings or the garbage plate. It's kind of a when in Rome type of thing. If I'm in Rochester, I partake in the garbage plate. Dogtown is my right. Dogtown, my spot of choice in Rochester for the garbage plate. And when it comes to wings, I'm a 9/11 guy in Buffalo.
Ooh, okay. Shout out them. We're gonna switch to Matt right here. We kind of made a little bit of a fashion analogy in terms of how you look at this team, Matt. Switch to you, Matty.
Yeah, I mean, so we have, going into this year, I know we still have the draft left. We still have, after draft free agents and things like that. We kind of have some established fronts already, like between, the offensive line, the quarterbacks, parts of the defense, linebackers specifically. I think that's the only one that's pretty much solidified, other than maybe, AJ Epinesa, Greg Rousseau, things like that. But do you think that there's going to be like new wrinkles in the same khakis?
Or you think it's a total new wardrobe? Yeah.
As far as what position? I lost you for a second.
Just the team as a whole. We made the analogy that, do you think this is the same pair of khakis with new wrinkles, new nuance, new schematic play schemes? We've had this group for a while. We know everything we lack and everything that we excel at. So are these new wrinkles in the same khakis, or do you think, with the additions of the draft coming up and some of our new free agents, do you think we could see a little bit of a updated wardrobe in terms of how we game plan and the product we're going to see on the field?
I think the only spot you might see a new wardrobe is on the defensive side of the ball in terms of their coverage on the outside. There's been a lot of talk about going to a bit more man coverage. This has been a zone coverage scheme the past several years under Sean McDermott. And I think what has been proven in these playoff matchups that they've struggled to get past these past few years is you need players that can lock up opposing wide receivers and stop opposing offenses from nickel and diming you down the field. You need to come up with stops on the outside. And I think one way to do that is maybe increase your usage of man coverage. And Christian Benford has proven capable in that regard. I know, I think coming out of college, he was more regarded as a zone coverage guy, but he's proven to be more of a well-rounded guy on the outside. Now, they need to pair somebody with him. I don't know if I'm comfortable in putting Dane Jackson out there
don't get us started.
Benford. But I think if they're able to find that running mate with Christian Benford, I think that's maybe some new khakis you could find. But I think overall it's just some new wrinkles and the same old khakis. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I like that he's playing along with the show format. I like it.
They've won the AFC East. How many years now? I think it's 4 or 5, whatever it is. I'm an offseason.
I bet you can tell me what the Patriots won it consecutively.
Forgive me, but yeah, it's I think the only place where you might find a bit of a drastic shift or towing the line to drastic is on the outside when it comes to a shift in man coverage.
Absolutely. You bring that stuff up is where we find these things. I'd like to really admonish being an FCS guy myself. How many FCS guys are really
what was your 40 time? Your 40 time?
4.64.
No way. 4.6? Wow.
4.64. 4.64. 4.64. We did the bench 28 times.
See that I could believe. Looking at your body structure here on camera.
I thought we weren't doing personals, guys.
I could believe 40, 50 bench press, but 4.6. Wow, I am
4.64. I want to make it very clear.
But listen,
anybody in the media is watching it, it was 4.64.
Listen, you're at the front of the number. Whatever you run for, if it was 4.69, you ran 4.6.
Oh. Man,
it's how,
and
it's how
if,
many,
and,
I'll tell
and
you
if
right
I
now,
had wheels,
if he
dude,
had a bag of salt and vinegar chips in front of him, he will.
can we
run
take?
that.
Listen,
how fast would he run to the salt and vinegar chips right now across the room? I need to see
first of
that
all,
right
they're
now.
within
Maybe a
arms.
4 or
No,
5. It'd
no,
be impressive.
no, wrong. It's 0.1 because they're next to me.
Fair.
No, but yeah, you say it's a 4.6 handle. Yeah, but also if I had wheels, I'd be a bike. So you know. So with all these new additions, Alex, I want to get you your thing. How does that affect with your open access media badge? Congratulations, that's incredible. That we got people worth listening to, getting front and center coverage. But with all these holes in these potential additions to the draft and through free agency, how does that focus you observing practice? Like, is there a certain position group that you focus more on the indies, the individual drills, or the install period, or the 7-on-7 period, or who really tethers himself to the new concepts of what we're trying to put out there this season? Is there any drills or any period of practice that you really feel like you get a more closer observation of what we have, especially during that St. John Fisher training camp period?
Yeah, the team drills are obviously where all eyes are focused on the main field there.
Josh fighting at the goal line.
Yeah, with Jordan Phillips or whoever it may be. But yeah, I think
as long as Alec Anderson can practice checking in, I could say that. Shout out, Alec. As long as he can practice checking into practice, in there, I feel like we've made some progress.
Yeah, but I think this year, when you look at the roster structure, I think I'll be focused on the defensive backs more so than anything. I think there's still some question there at safety with Cole Bishop, whether or not he can latch on as the starter opposite Taylor Rapp. And then we talked about the cornerback position already. There's a lot of question there. Who's going to fill in opposite Christian Benford? And when it comes to the team drills, you look at how they match up going 11-on-11, but there's also wide receiver versus cornerback kind of one-on-one drills with the cornerback throwing routes near the goal line. That's interesting to watch. And then obviously the individual drills, just who's mixing it up with who's being taken under whose wing, and just kind of how each player is mixing in to their given role. But I think this year, just keeping my eye on training camp, which is set to come in a few months here, I think the defensive back room is really going to be a point of emphasis for the team this offseason.
I mean, it's one of those things too. Is when you're battling against the same guy the entire time. You're battling against your own teammate. You really see who has that chutzpah, that wants it. It has. We always say, like Matt, Alec Anderson has the nasty. Yeah. That's controlled aggression. That's controlled commitment to assignment, to delivering on being one of 11. But it has to be very palpable. Just hitting the same guy every single day in those dog days in reporting on the team. Now, I'm not a guy that really makes much of training camp fights or anything like that. But that thick energy of all that testosterone has to be very air apparent to you in reporting on the team. I think that builds on the camaraderie. Can you speak to the camaraderie of which that developed this year in the departure kind of Stefan Diggs? I mean, Settlers, like Catan, Madden, chicken sandwiches,
I think definitely the two coincided. I think Stefan Diggs had kind of wore out his welcome in that locker room, and I think the way that you saw the team kind of rally around that everybody eats mentality and kind of all for one for all, and Josh Allen at the head of the snake, I thought it was really impressive and really a drop of a hat to see the locker room shift a bit like that. And leading into last season, I said it, I think there was an underlying toxicity in that locker room. And you mentioned it, just it comes with going against the same guys year after year and having the same voices leading the team year after year. And a guy like Stefan Diggs, he's very out front and center, and I think he's going to wear on you one way or the other.
So they're not just to be clear, they're not just Drake lyrics. There is something there, right?
I thought so.
Right.
I think maybe some others would disagree with it, but I certainly thought that Stefan Diggs' subtraction from the locker room, I thought was a positive thing for the Bills in the long run.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking on Stefan Diggs, I mean, the whole thing came out, with him posting the pictures back to his thing and
I
everything.
think Matt, I think that's the lull of the offseason. It's the lull of the offseason where we just need something to talk about.
No, that's Stephon Diggs just wanting attention. Is he with Cardi B now?
Something like that.
Dude.
I have no idea.
What the fuck?
I have no idea. But let's leave
everything
that
I've
alone.
learned about Stephon Diggs' private life, I've learned without my consent.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I was getting to more what the Bills have left. They have about $4.459 million in cap space left. What do you see them doing with that?
I think they'll probably enter training camp with right around there in cap space. Maybe they create a little bit more. I think there's a few more levers they could pull in terms of restructuring of contracts. I think Dawson Knox, perhaps a possibility. I forget who else was mentioned. Deion Dawkins, maybe a possibility for a contract restructure. Yeah, Connor McGovern as well. I think you need to enter training camp with a little bit of maneuverability in terms of the 53-man roster when you get there. And I think there's a few more holes that they might want to fill when the rosters shake out down the stretch here. I think there's always valuable veterans that come free, and if the Bills have a bit of money left over, they can perhaps pull the trigger and bring somebody in to help fill some of these needs that they'll enter the draft with and probably still enter training camp with in a few months.
Yeah, I mean, one of those guys I feel, and I've been kind of on his, the train the whole time, is somebody like Elijah Moore. We haven't seen much out of him, but he's also played with no quarterbacks between the Jets and the Browns. Guy ran a 4.35 as an 8.68 RAS score. I mean, I think that he could be something, even if you sign him to a flyer at this point, 1 year, $3.5 or $4 million, and you could, work that, with void years or whatever, and bring that cap down or cap it way down. Would somebody like him be an option?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. I am certainly of the mindset that they need to fill wide receiver a bit more than they do right now. I think a lot of people, or than they have right now. Curtis Samuel, I think a lot of people still are hoping that he kind of comes to fruition here for the Bills this season and the hopes that they had for him. But I'm not as confident in his ability to kind of rise to that level. I think they need to kind of spread out the options and give themselves more options here as they approach training camp. And Elijah Moore, I don't know much about him, but I'll tell you what, I'm more impressed with the 4.640 than I am Elijah Moore's 4 point whatever.
Man, you're never going to live that down. You're never going to live that down.
I don't really know him that well, but now, I feel like we're teetering on Stephon Diggs territory. I hate him or I love him, okay? So I'm going to give you the next question when I think about my entire life and run the cold shower in my face.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, we're going to – I know I'm stealing this from Marty Braun, so I apologize. But we're going to go with – I'm not going to say it like
He's
him,
Canadian.
But,
there's a tariff on this.
We're going to go with a little bit of this or that.
Oh, let's not get political. No, I'm just joking.
We're going to go into the draft here.
Dude, I love this guy.
We look at it as like I was saying, like I sent you on Twitter. We here at Do Champions
proprietary
use BAWA, best available when available. So I'm going to kind of base it off that a little bit. If these players were available, who would you pick at 30?
And just to define best available when available, it's something Matt and I came up with. It's best available when available versus need, versus development, versus depth, versus utility, versus need. We need a corner. That's going to be a prioritization. Versus development. Guys like Greg Rousseau came in with adult braces, 19 years old. Spencer Brown, who got a COVID year. Versus development. Versus depth. We already got Josh. Do we if Cam Ward slips to 30, we don't really need to take him. That's versus depth. And versus weighted utility. Just because the punter can punt it 3 miles. Do you take a punter in the first round? So once again, that's best available when available. Brought to you by Do Champions. That's versus need versus depth versus weighted utility. Matt, to you.
So going with this or that. First of all, is Trey Amos or Derek Harmon?
Derek Harmon. I think defensive tackle is a position that I'm not sure you could find as many difference makers later in the draft. I think cornerback, as has been proven with Christian Benford, although kind of a unicorn situation, I think you'll be able to find somebody who can come in and fill that CB2 role a bit more adequately than you could find a defensive tackle to come in here and be a significant run stuffer like they need later in the draft. I think you need to look for that in round 1. It seems like Derek Harmon has a first-round grade on him. He seems to have the traits that the Bills are looking for, a big body that can stuff the run and get after the passer a bit as well. So I would go Derek Harmon. I favor defensive tackle early in the draft, whereas I think you probably need to fill your roster a bit more in the draft at cornerback, maybe select 2-3 players at that position where you need to find that difference maker at the top at the defensive tackle position.
So I'm normally the same as you. Cornerback can kind of be filled throughout the entire draft, but with defensive tackle being so depth worthy this year, there's not that much of a drop off going from the first to the third round. I know the Bills have 30, 56, and 62. There. So I think that if they were to get their pick of the litter, at 56 or 62, plus having 10 draft picks, they could always move back up, into the 40s and pick one of those guys. Maybe not a Derek Harmon, but somebody like a Deion Walker or a Jordan Phillips or somebody like that. But at 30, I think that this year they really need to go and go get that blue chip prospect in a corner personally, because I think the corner draft this year is more top heavy than it is, all the way down. You got Trey Amos, you got Maxwell Harrison, you got Jahdae Barron, players like that. But my next one would be actually Amos or Hairston. Which one would you take if both are available right there?
Who is the second one? I'm sorry.
Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky.
Let's see. I'm not as much of a draft guru as you seem to be, but I would go Amos. He's been on my radar throughout the offseason. I think he has what you're looking for in terms of potential versatility out there at cornerback, and that's something that the Bills covet. And you mentioned how it's kind of a top-heavy draft, and that's certainly something to consider. I know that historically I would probably put cornerback more of a favorable position to look at deeper in the draft, but if you're telling me it's a top-heavy draft in cornerback, that's certainly something to consider. And Trey Amos, you really couldn't go wrong if you select him.
I love Asante Samuel Jr. I don't know if I'm a nepotism guy, but with such a robust running back room, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, Cook, I guess. Speaking of nepotism, is Dalvin in his ear the same way Trey Diggs was in Steph Diggs' ear? I think super producer Ty had a question with that running back room. Frank Gore Jr., Frank Gore Sr. to Matt, this or that. Who are you going to post to him? This or that? It's the Miami.
Yeah, with Frank Gore Jr. being in the running back room, do you think this is a better running back room than the 2001 Miami Hurricanes running back room?
Led by Ken Dorsey at quarterback.
Hey man, you had Frank Gore, you had McGahee, you had Clinton Portis. What do you got?
Yeah,
that's a really good question, actually.
2001 for sure. You're talking 2001 Miami or this year's Bills running back room?
Yeah.
Yeah. Put it in a vacuum. They're college kids. They're not gold jackets yet.
It's tough to do that. I already know how good they're going to be, but
right.
And that's best available when available versus development.
Right. If you're telling me when they were in college compared to these guys as pros, I'll take the pros. But if you're telling me how those guys were going to develop, you
that's
can't
how
go
you
wrong
debate.
with
That's how I
with,
get my
with
answer. That's how you
McGahee,
debate.
Portis.
That's a big room right there.
Yeah, that's a good group.
So to go back to this or that,
I really hijacked that. Sorry.
That's okay. Isaiah Bond or the best cornerback available?
Bond. I'm a wide receiver. Well, you're talking number 30?
Yes.
Not Bond. I think he's more second round material from what I'm gathering. I think maybe a slight trade up to get that second rounder for the Bills, but or earlier in the second round. I think somewhere in the 40s is where he's projected.
That's
Isaiah
kind of where
Bond.
I have him going. That's kind of where I'm thinking he's going to go. I actually have I put out my my mock draft out this week, my version 2 of it, and I'll be putting one more out the night before the draft. But I have Matthew Golden actually going 12 to Dallas.
12, yeah. I mean, after you run that speedy time at the 40, you're going to improve your
I hate how
draft
we still
stock.
bring up 40s.
Yeah, but I think wide receiver is probably, if not the only position, one of the only positions where I think it translates. I think teams are going toward more looking at the miles per hour the players are running as opposed to the final time. But I think it still holds a bit of value. But you're right. I think a lot of those measurements and drills at the combine are kind of overvalued, whereas tape and on the field production, I think is more weighted in my opinion. But to answer your question, with number 30, best cornerback available at that point rather than Bond. I think with Matthew Golden, I would trade up somewhere around 20, 21, 22-ish to get there. I don't know who's picking at that time, whether or not those teams would be looking to trade out of those picks. But somewhere like a minimal to minor trade up to get Matthew Golden, but Isaiah Bond, I think you wait until round 2 maybe for a trade up in that position.
Gotcha. And my last one here is Ibuka or Trey Amos.
Well, like I said, I'm not a draft guru. Amos has been on my radar, so I'm going to stick to what I know. Give me Trey Amos. He seems to be a guy that, like I said, could fill what the Bills are looking for, and I think if you get him right around that pick at number 30, I don't think you can go wrong going with Trey Amos there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I've mocked him to the Bills now twice, and I really think that he brings a skill set that very well matches what the Bills need. The ability to play.
Give me your breakdown of him. I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, so
like I said, I
wouldn't
with Bills Digest. During the regular season, that's really where I make I don't want to say make my money. I contribute to each issue, but I take hold of the in-season issues. When it comes to free agents, pre-free agency, and pre-draft, we have a gentleman, I'll get his name here. I just followed him on Twitter, who does a lot of
Sounds like you have a deep tethered relationship with him.
Yeah, our draft stuff. He was there before I came along, so he's well-versed in this stuff. He does a great job. I'll get his name for you as you're breaking it down. But it's just long story short, I'm picking up my coverage of the draft and stuff like that. But it's kind of been a slow process with my other responsibilities at the Batavia Daily News. But let me grab his name as you give your breakdown of him.
Break it down, Matty.
Yeah, it's Trey Amos. But fantastic instincts, great ball skills. He's probably one of the smartest guys in the draft as far when it comes down to actually the defensive IQ and where to find the ball and things like that. You can see on a lot of his tape when he has gets his interceptions. He's actually peeling off to actually go to where it seems like where he's seen the ball in film. He's got great height, great weight. He's very lanky corner. He's very physical in press man situations. And he's solid.
To be clear, he is not reading off a list right now. This is like the inner workings of it. He doesn't know how to take out the garbage, but
I could tell. I could tell he was a draft guy, and I'm always interested to hear their opinions because, like I said, that's not something that I really put my nose to the grindstone on in terms of this stage of my coverage.
I mean, that one of my things is I love the draft. I'm very big on it. I've been doing it since I've been 13, 14 years old.
It's such a long day.
Still have notebooks in my mother's attic of when I was writing it down, and that was just watching it on ESPN and stuff like that, and watching College Game Day but that's back in 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
But the things that he can work on is a little bit of tackling. He doesn't have that high-end speed that he's going to blow you away with, or that makeup speed. And he does need to work on off-man coverage skills. So those are the pros and cons to him. But I think those things are teachable. When he comes in. But again, I think probably my best corner in the draft after Travis Hunter is Jahdae Barron. And then followed by Trey Amos. I'm trying to think.
Barron's a Texas guy, right?
Correct. Yes.
Shout out A-Will.
Yeah. Barron is my second. Third is Trey Amos. Fourth is Will Johnson. And then fifth is Siobhan Revel.
Yeah, Ravel is somebody else I've read about. I think Joe Biscaglia wrote about him in a piece on The Athletic. Who, Biscaglia?
Yep.
Now it's Skaggs, yeah. Love socks, love spreadsheets. Shout out Joe Biscaglia. But like in developing all these personal relationships, you do have to personally develop yourself. Alex, we're not going to make this about you, but it's been a long journey, and you've covered the team. I mean, you were around when Russ Salvatore. Can you imagine a time when we had home games and we weren't sure if we were going to see it on CBS because they were blacked out? You were around for those times. What's your sense in the pulse of the collective as your career grows, this team grows? What do you think's been made it so great and kept you in this profession and operating at such a high discernible level to make this Bills team palatable for the average fan? What have you learned in your longstanding career that's nothing but impressive and worth listening to?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've always wanted to do since I was a kid. I went to school for education. I was a couple of years into my degree, maybe a year and a half into my degree at SUNY Brockport. I stopped going to school. I picked up what I was doing while I was going to school there. I started my own personal sports blog. It was called Batavia's Best. It was more so focused on high school sports at the time.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah. It really went deep into the high school sports, and as a result got hired by the Batavia Daily News, was able to cover the Bills, just covering games when I first started there around 2018. And then a few years later, I was hired as sports editor and really got to engulf myself into the day-to-day and go to practices and stuff like that. And it's been a long learning process throughout that time. There really hasn't been someone by my side really kind of teaching me the ins and outs of the business. I've kind of had to navigate that by myself. Yeah, which has been difficult at times. But at the same time, it's been a little bit more rewarding to find myself in some of the positions that I have because of that fact that I've kind of made it here on my own. And by no means has it been a smooth ride. I've had a lot of trials and many more tribulations personally and professionally. But when it's all said and done, I'm proud of where I find myself today, and proud
what a time you chose to be alive, my man.
Yeah, the relationships I built, and I'm very happy to be covering this team at a time where they're on the precipice of a Super Bowl championship, because I've been a fan dating back to
Wait, you used the word precipice and you went to Brockport?
Hey, I started.
I gotta level the balance sheet here after that 40-time comment.
Yeah, no,
sorry, that's fair news.
Touche. But you got to remember, I went to Genesee Community College. We called that Harvard on the Hill, where I'm from. So,
I mean, I appeared in 2 episodes of Jersey Shore, so we don't want to talk about depravity in past lives. So, the one thing I asked Talbot, the one thing I asked Greg Thompson, and this may seem a narcissistic, but it's something that's kind of cool. Are people recognizing you when you're out? People like kind of giving you that oomph to keep going? Because I mean, I think you deserve. You don't deserve the mute button. You deserve the bullhorn, because I think a lot of the information you put out is palatable, reliable, and worth listening to, based on a fun, leisurely perspective, but also based on, hey, you want to learn the inner workings of this team from a guy who's in the inner workings of this team? Listen to Brasky.
Well, I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. But yeah, I keep on doing my thing. You know how it goes. What was the initial question there? I lost it. I was looking at the score of this Duke-Alabama game.
Anyway, we'd like to thank Alex Brasky for coming on the podcast. You can catch him Bills.
No. What was the question there?
Have you reached an echelon?
And by the way,
our
draft guy is Dave Syvertson at Bills Digest. So
I didn't think there was going to be a more convoluted, all over the place guest than the host of the show, but thank you for that. I am writing this down.
Make sure you're following Dave Syvertson. But no, I do not get recognized. I am not at Sal Capacio's
That is not
level.
true. That is not true
by any means. At least I'm hoping people aren't recognizing me, because I like to lie low, especially when I'm out in
right.
public. But no,
So-
if you do see me, come on
This
out.
is starting to
I'd
feel
love
like a
have
hangout.
conversation.
This is starting to feel like a hangout.
So, Alex, I know you. We went a little bit of overtime on you, so we definitely thank you for that.
Thank you, man.
But one last question for
Listen,
you.
I'm just happy we got Students' camera hooked up correctly because we needed to see that voluptuous.
Well, like with my weight, we had to unplug my dialysis
Don't
machine.
Be talking shit.
Hey, cursing. We had to unplug my dialysis machine to get the proper voltage levels for here.
Listen,
Okay.
I've been doing a podcast without a microphone for about 3 months, so
Yeah, people want to take mine away.
I'm really throwing stones in a glass house here.
You're fine. You're fine. So I actually
love
spent a little bit of time in Rochester myself. I think we had a back and forth. But what is the go-to spot for up there for a garbage plate?
The go-to, no, like I'm
Dogtown.
talking like Jesus comes back incarnate this Lenten season. Where are you taking him to get him to break his 40-day fast?
You better say it right.
It's Dogtown. It's 100% Dogtown when it comes to a garbage plate in Rochester. They have the best ingredients, the best meat sauce.
Ingredients. That's not the first thing I think of.
There's 3 ingredients.
Carbs, fats, and salts.
But there's a variation. When you go from spot to spot, you get a certain kind of mac
lard
salad.
versus Kerrygold butter?
I'm not saying it's vast variations or wide variations, but you get a different kind of mac salad, a different kind of home fry, a different hot sauce. Yeah. So my favorite. You asked me, okay? My preference.
Exactly.
My preference is Dogtown. Okay.
That's great.
Because Matt, it's everything you need.
Give a shout out to Dogtown. Where's Dogtown at?
It's on Monroe Ave. But
Shout out to
seriously,
Dogtown.
I'm still a Nick
Dogtown,
Tahoe's guy.
you can't go wrong with a garbage plate. I mean, I enjoy Nick Tahoe's. I'm not a guy who.
No shit, dude. You just shake it up and it's got its bits.
Yeah, it's delicious. I'm not going to shout down Nick Tahoe's, but I will, whenever I get the opportunity, get on my soapbox and preach for Dogtown because it is a great experience.
Yes. No, absolutely. Alex, tell us what you got going on before you hop off. And
thank you again, man. This was
definitely
fun.
Had a lot of fun with you on here. Just tell us what you got going on. I love the name of the podcast, the Right Here, Right Now. That's probably the best name.
What is that, by Fatboy Slim? Are we gonna make fun of my weight again?
No, honestly, that's on my my what do you call it? House music, techno. That's not one of my favorite kinds of music, but I have a playlist, and that's on my playlist.
So if you're let me do this. If you're a Bills player and you're coming out that tunnel, what song are you coming out to?
Lunatic Fringe, Red Rider.
Perfect. Alex, thank you so much for coming on.
Hold on, you didn't, let me plug my things.
Yeah. My bad.
Interrupting me.
I apologize.
No.
This is how you know how those memes of how guys become friends. They say hi twice, and all of a sudden, like one guy's in their wedding. I feel like he's gonna be like the next of kin in my will now after this.
Well, good. Hey, you know where to send the check. But anyway,
it'll bounce.
Right Here, Right Now podcast. Follow me at Alex Brasky. I was just busting your balls. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Alex. Oh man, that was good. Alex, thank you again, man.
Have a good night,
man. I was man, that was so fun. Ty, do you agree with all his hot food takes and stuff like that? Let's bring it to you. The camera to you.
I would say absolutely not. Those picks for the dog plate there.
Your camera.
Yeah, absolute dog shit. There's 3 ingredients. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. But fucking A, bro. It's not. What's what you picked,
man?
For what you picked.
The off season is where we let the cursing fly on this podcast. So anyway, you listen to the Third and Manageable podcast. Thank you again for Alex Brasky. He's a guy that if you still tether yourself to print media and all that stuff, it's been nothing but great. We'll just make a touch of a break, and we'll bring on Mr. Kyle Trimble from the Banged Up Bills, man. And you guys are going to learn a little bit about kind of what's going on. For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollo's, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Dew Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
You're welcoming us back right now. A little louder, Matt, for me. A little louder for me. Welcome us back. We welcome on Mr. Kyle Trimble. He is a contributor to the same man we just spoke with. Matt, a little volume on that thing. The same man we just spoke with, in Alex Brasky. He's the guy who's tethered himself. Kyle's a guy that I actually met on my event coming up, and I'd like to plug it with Ilio DePaulo's June 22nd, benefiting Harrison's Playmakers, benefiting the Ilio DePaulo Scholarship Fund. It's my bocce tournament. It's at Soleil Beach, June 22nd. And I remember, if I can tell a quick story before he comes on and I'll have him comment on it, is this guy hit me up. It's a guy that I've leaned on heavily for his orthopedic knowledge, for his knowledge of lower extremity trauma, and a guy who's always really been on it. And I see him across Bill's Digest. I see him across Cover One, and I see him on Twitter. If the alerts are on, if this guy makes an alert, you better believe my phone's getting pinged. He's got his doctorate, and he believes passionately in what he's been doing for a very long time. I'd like to welcome, at this point, Dr. Kyle Trimble. What's going on, my man?
Hey, great to have you on here tonight, guys.
How you doing, man? What's been up with you? And how kind of cool was it meeting the first time over at that bocce tournament? If you can talk about it a little bit, because that is coming up June 22nd. Go to www.soleilbeach.com/my government name. If anybody knows it, you probably should at this point to sign up. But Kyle, that's how we met, and we kind of became tethered spirits because you're very passionate about philanthropy. You're very passionate about just in your real profession, the healing mechanisms of just kind of coming together and in the humanistic experience. It was kind of cool when I first met you, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we're all thankful that we had to connect. You know, Twitter, X is a great thing to meet so many different people, and then you meet them in real life. So it's just a real cool evolution how everybody gets together and creates friendships and bonds and whatnot. So it was great that I got to go out to Seoul. That was the first time being out there. As I'll bring my son. He's still learning the ins and outs of football, but he'll appreciate that much later. When
he's still learning how big these humans are, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he's looking up, and like he doesn't have any more neck range of motion to look up, and he just keeps going. It's like I can't even see this guy, top of the guy's head. So he'll appreciate this, 10 years from now when he has pictures. When he met Gable Stevenson, who was Olympic gold medalist. He met Jim Kelly. He met some other of the Bills players.
Harrison.
Like he'll appreciate that later on. Yeah. Harrison. Yep. So, those type of events are for him, because my dad did that for me when I was young. I want to do that for him. So great. I appreciate you. Let me come out and, have him have those opportunities, even though he'll appreciate them later.
Absolutely. And as we're touching on the human experience, you do a lot of reporting on these athletes. And as you're tethered to some of these injuries, how do you approach, I would just quickly, before we get into the Bills, how do you approach, diagnosing some not so great news? Because typically if they're going to see you, it's not because they're feeling well. How do you approach kind of pain management? How do you approach putting together a concentrated plan on the path of rehab? And how do you apply that in the way you accurately predict when we get a high ankle sprain, when we'll get that player back, when we get like a separated AC joint? You do a very good job of imparting. Every player's different. Is that kind of the catalyst of your true profession? And do you think that's why you're so good at imparting your passionate and professional optic and diagnosis as to return time and the severity of some of these traumatic things that do unfortunately happen in this game on the gridiron?
So I try to educate. That's really the basis behind everything I started doing, why I started doing this in the first place. But I also have to remember they're human too. So when I put something out there, I want to acknowledge that, everybody's different, healing times are different, the position's different, and just understand their mindset of what they're going through with the injury. You don't want to just, it's no big deal, it's a hamstring, they'll be back, no problem. Sometimes guys really struggle with that stuff. Or, we saw with Tre'Davious White with his ACL tear. Like, we didn't know the mental.
Or even Tommy Doyle with a drop foot.
Exactly. I spoke with him directly last year about that, and it was tough because you know where, like, as a professional, you know where things are at with that type of injury, and we saw ultimately he had to retire because of it. But just understanding, hey, this is a human element. Yes, it's a business, and yes, these are serious injuries. But hey, here's where you could still move forward with things. He's still living a pretty normal life from what I'm seeing on social media and whatnot. But it just there has to be some level of sensitivity. Like, yes, you want to be truthful with these guys, but you don't want to talk to them like they're commodities, even though that sometimes the NFL does treat them like that. And you have to do that in professional settings too, whether you're working in the clinic or athletes or whoever else. You have to treat these people as people instead of just saying, hey, you got this injury and whatever. So I think if you're present with them and talk to them and try to meet them on their level, I think they're going to get a better response from you, and then they're going to buy in when you're trying to provide treatment. Or if you're telling them something good or bad, they're taking you more at what rather than just somebody else telling them something maybe they don't want to hear or something that boosts their ego or whatever.
Yeah. So, sometimes hard truths are better than faux optimism,
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on tonight is because we just saw Christian Benford get signed today.
Who predicted that?
I mean, I don't know.
Come on, let me get a picture.
Somebody
of that.
who knows Eric Wood.
Oh God, we can't make it one podcast without mentioning our friendship with Eric Wood.
But no, in all seriousness, I mean, with Christian Benford, he seems to stay healthy during the season, but then he's injured at the most important parts of the year. I mean, can you shed a little bit of light on maybe why those things are happening?
Are you asking? Are these the games get harder, or these nagging injuries that catch up? That catch up.
Yeah,
like pain management almost.
Correct.
That's a good question. I mean, looking back, I did an article on him on my site, bangedupbills.com, and looking back, he did suffer most of his injuries later in the season. There wasn't anything nagging that suggested it. I mean, just gonna go back briefly, he had an oblique strain that kept him out the rest of his rookie year. Now he had went on injured reserve, missed 4 games, and he kind of got phased out of the defense at that point. And in 2023, he suffered a right knee injury during the wild card game, and then missed the following game. And then, of course, he had the concussions the past, the back-to-back concussions in the divisional round and AFC Championship game. So I think some of that's just unfortunate luck. I mean, I remember that wild card game against the Steelers, everybody was getting beat up, and it was like, just stop the game. Let us just quit letting guys get injured. And then this year, just concussions.
Right.
That was just real tough.
I mean, that's how you saw Khair enter the game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with the concussions, what was real interesting was every Bills player should clarify that has had concussion during the postseason has cleared the concussion protocol and then played the following game. I don't feel the training staff is pushing guys through. If they're ready to go, they have a protocol for a reason, because it used to be they just send them back out there. They didn't know up from down or whatnot. So there's things in place that allow them to safely navigate through the protocol. Should he have been out there? I mean, the protocol says yes, but we know that concussions sometimes take longer to recover, even though you might test baseline and you're back to normal and whatnot, at least from a testing standpoint. And then he takes another hit to the head, and then he's out. And we saw Khair come out, and we know how that went there. So I think it's just more unfortunate circumstances rather than nagging injuries, later in the year.
Yeah, I mean, and we especially with concussions, we heard it from somebody like Bud Carpenter, but also like Brett Favre. When he said famously that he probably had 1,000 in his career, because every time you get hit, you hear the ringing. That's technically a concussion. But so with Christian Benford, I know it was the Chiefs, I know it was the AFC Championship game, but should he have been playing in that game? And if the answer is yes, should he have been wearing a Guardian cap?
And if the answer is yes, how much do you defer in those situations to player communication versus what the medicals are saying?
So should he have been playing? The protocol says yes. So you kind of have to go with what the data and everything else show there. Hindsight says he probably shouldn't have been playing, but if he hasn't suffered concussion, do you second guess that decision? So you have to say that yes, he should have been playing based off the current protocols. Should he have been wearing a Guardian cap? We've seen that with guys coming back. Taylor Rapp was doing that all season.
Is there
We've
enough
seen some other
empirical
guys.
data yet, you think, on those?
Not from what I've seen. I
Right.
like the idea because it can, displace some of the external force there. I mean, we saw Mark Kelso do that. We've seen other guys play throughout the years, and the data, the NFL data,
The Kelso helmet is legitimately ridiculous.
It is. Yeah.
Bud Carpenter actually told us that story that there was some scientist that developed that. Remember that, Matt, in Pennsylvania, and Bud Carpenter washed his hands of it. He's just like, I was not trying to make him Gazoo from the Jetsons, but that is it ended up what happened.
Well, I mean, it extended his career. So, I mean, it worked for him. He might have been N1 with that there. But the guardian cap, I know that the NFL is saying that the concussions are decreasing during the preseason. They want to mandate that for all contact positions, offensive, defensive linemen. And then they've been seeing it more spread out to the other position players. So I think there's something to it. I know it's like a stop the concussions altogether from, because you're still dealing with the brain inside the skull there. That's not going to necessarily stop the forces moving around there. But if you can reduce some external force, just instead of that force going straight to the brain and jiggling around, and you can disperse some of that force, I'm all for that. But I don't think there's enough empirical data and independent empirical data that shows that this does reduce it. But the NFL saying it, but the NFL said a lot of things for years that we found out to be not true later on.
Yeah, like PSLs are a suitable investment vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah.
It says in the prospectus they're not. Goodell, tighten up.
Yeah. But no, the other thing though that I wanted to ask you specifically is, with concussions along with any other injuries, maybe concussions specifically, but turf versus grass.
I think that's another empirical data conversation.
I mean,
I'll defer. We'll defer to him, but continue.
I mean, is there more concussions happening on grass fields or turf fields compared to the one another?
And if we can expand on that, is it a simpler issue? Give the damn players what they want.
I believe you should give players what they want. I mean, everybody talk about how much grass is better. I mean, it has more give. There's not something underneath. I mean, it's all concrete underneath. Or I know that some of the synthetic surfaces, they're getting better with the being as close to natural surface. But at the same point too, I don't know how many guys I've talked to, you hear podcast interviews, they all say that it just feels different after coming off of turf there. So the NFL once again tell you that there's no real difference between turf versus grass, but I think we see more
because agricultural management
grass.
is so expensive,
Yeah.
So it's the reason Tottenham, when we go play in that stadium, they're not rolling out their EPL pitch. They're putting grass over grass. It's agricultural management, that's a thing. It's also a thing. And Matt and I talk about it all the time. You're familiar with MetLife Stadium. How many times do you see a Sunday to Monday turnaround from Jets Giants, and that field borderline looks black from the play safe pellets because they're just rototilling it to try and rejuvenate a synthetic surface. I mean, that seems like more of a liability is overuse. But then again, you can't do that turnaround in a grass field. So it almost seems like what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable, object.
Exactly. I mean, you have pros and cons of each of them. I mean, the turf's going to be a little more resilient to play multiple games, events, things on, but then the grass is going to be more forgiving there. So I think when you're looking at it from multi-use, you want turf, but for player safety, you want grass. And, they have too much money not to invest in grass, even if you have to pull, the tray out. We've seen some crazy different things how they can move entire fields in and out based off what they need. So it's like you have the money, invest in the players because they're going to be able to, the product on the field at the end of the day.
From to pivot really quick, the product on the field. I had a thought. Granted, it's about half baked with a very doughy core, but I had a thought, Kyle, and I want to ask you about it. When looking at the shelf life of one James Cook, how much can you pin on past performance is indicative of future results with the shelf life of Dalvin Cook's career? Do you think in that genealogy there's something to speak of Dalvin Cook, lost the wheels towards the end? He didn't have the Derrick Henry career. Do you think you can assign predictive analysis based on them being brothers, or do you think it's some people have Derrick Henry careers and some people have James Gurley careers?
There's a lot of variables playing to that. I mean, you got the genetics, which
I know. Like I said, this question is half baked.
Well, that got me thinking though too. As you're as you finish up the questions, I mean, genetics play a big part into that. I mean, we've seen guys who have long careers, and then their siblings are nothing. They might make the league in whatever respective league they're in, and
my
then
brother.
do nothing. But then you also have to figure in what's their workload. If I recall, Dalvin, he had a pretty heavy workload coming out of, I believe it was Florida State. And then James was pretty lightly used in Georgia, and then he slowly worked his way up there. So look at the durability issues and how much you're being used. And they find that it's like once you reach a certain level in terms of carries and snaps and things like that, if you can maintain that and not get hurt, then you can be pretty durable moving forward there. And he's been a guy that really has been injured. I believe he's only missed one game in his entire career because of that turf toe injury he suffered against Houston.
Turf toe's hard to come back from.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, he still played very well. I mean, we saw the rushing stats go down, but the offense was more balanced this year and whatnot. So I would imagine that James probably could be a little more durable just because he's missed less games. He didn't have the shoulder injury that Dalvin Cook dealt with throughout his career. He's playing with that torn labrum for most of his career. And then I just think that he just didn't have the miles on him that Dalvin did coming into the league. So hopefully he's able to stretch it out a little bit more. I know the shelf life of running back is still limited compared to the other positions, but I would expect him to at least have a better shot at having a longer career than Dalvin, just based off of the variables, him having less snaps and having less injuries so far in his career.
Yeah, so I mean, you brought up turf toe, and I want to touch on a specific player from earlier, from
Deion Sanders, who lost it
from this past year in Curtis Samuel. We were just talking to Alex Brasky, and people are still thinking that, still holding out hope that he's going to, turn into something for the Bills, even though he's had success other places in his career. How much of that turf toe actually affected him, because you didn't really see him do much until the Broncos game in the playoffs?
I think it affected him a little bit, but he had a lot of time for it to really rehab. I mean, keep in mind, he suffered this thing in mid-August. He really stayed off it for 3-4 weeks before week 1 hit. So it's not like he suffered this where James Cook suffered it in week 5 or whatever it was, missed one game in the back, and it was just kind of battling through that. Samuel had the opportunity to at least get fully healthy, or at least close to it, and give that time to actually rest and rehab it. Coming into the season, prior to that year when Samuel signed, I wasn't a big fan of him because he had so many injuries. He's always playing through stuff. So I think that just as soon as one thing happened with him, it just kind of compounded on top of another. And that's what we saw all year. He was on the injury report, I think, more weeks than not. I think it was like 13, 14 weeks where he was dealing with a shoulder, or he was dealing with a foot and a toe and an ankle. It was always something with him. So I don't know that the turf toe really slowed him up. I just think that once one injury hit, even though he had time to rest, he never really got going. So it was like I don't want to say he didn't get calloused up, but he did kind of lose some of that because he was on the shelf trying to rehab. So he was just a slow starter, and then just really never got going because he's just always beat up.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm hoping that, we all hope that, he has a better season this year, and helps, because with his speed, he's able to take the top off the defense, and, he can take some of those things that Khalil Shakir was doing, those, like the bubble screens and that type of stuff, wide receiver screens, he can take those and go 30, 40, 50, 60 yards, so that, and the with the turf toe, that kind of hinders your speed a little bit. Can you explain what that is? And
to add on to that too, Kyle, for non super traumatic injuries, what do you find in your professional career to be the most nagging performance wise injuries, like a turf toe, like a high ankle, even to some degree a labrum?
The turf toe, the high ankles are certainly more in season nagging. A lot more the soft tissue stuff, the hamstrings, the calves. Let's just
seeing a ton of it.
Yeah, I mean, we see those more than the high ankles, and the high ankles are like, hey, it happens, it sucks. You just tape it up and try to get by with it. The turf toe, you can at least put a brace, some type of splint, something in there to help give it more stability so you can push off of it. The soft tissue, you can't really do anything to that. You can't, I mean, you can stretch it, you can try to strengthen it up, you can try to maximize the healing blood flow to the area, but you can't do anything to really protect it, and you have to let things heal up. So I'd lean more toward the soft tissue stuff being more the nagging stuff and limiting guys' ability to play than anything else there. And then you said that the other part of that question was we were talking about Curtis Samuel there still too, but we were talking about the turf toe and then what exactly happens with that, correct?
What's that?
Yeah, what exactly
you're-
happens? Like we
Yeah.
talk about splints and stuff like that, but is just kind of manageable rest. Sometimes the greatest healers, sometimes the greatest detriment to the body is father time. Sometimes the greatest healer of the body is father time.
In this case, you need to let the tissues heal up in there. So what happens is the turf toe, the big toe gets hyperextended and it stretches the ligaments that connect the toe to the metatarsal head. And then just when you do that, you lose any leverage you do when you're pushing off, when you're sprinting, because that you get up on the balls of your feet, your toes. And so you lose a lot of leverage, and then you hyperextend that toe every time when you're pushing off of it. And if it's severe enough, you can tear the plantar plate, which usually requires surgery. But oftentimes when the turf toe is just that spray in there, and you never really get a chance to let that rest through normal means. But like we talked about, the split being in there, it helps take some of that pressure off and puts more of the force through the midfoot and through just the whole foot in general instead of pushing off on that toe. Rest is good in that time, but you still have to build up the stability, and you don't want it to get so to the point where the joint heals up and gets so stiff, and then you have to try to work it back up. So you want to maintain mobility, but not promote too much hypermobility too with that. So it's a balancing act. So rest will help it, but we don't want to sit around and do nothing and then try to go back and do everything 100% on it. So it's just kind of working your way back.
I mean,
up
the all-time
once you kind of let things calm down.
healer is ice and stem, right? Ice and stem, baby.
That's more pain management stuff. I mean, they're very, very acute stuff that can help manage some things, but you don't want to do that more than a day or two after the injury. You want to get that thing moving, but sometimes you have to protect the area too. In the case of turf toe,
is it what is it? Is it cortisol? Is the inflammation, the stagnant of not doing anything or in laying in a dormant position? What is that?
So, with the inflammation,
I'm really running you through your medical boards right
that's
now.
Okay. Hey, I know the stuff there, so I just always want to make sure
there's a reason there's a doctor in front of your name.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
there's the IRS in front of mine.
So, but go back to your question about the inflammation. I mean, inflammation is a good thing ultimately in the body. It's showing your body's trying to heal up. But the problem is when you let that inflammation persist, then everything just you prevent the full motion, you prevent the full function of the body there. So it's great for the body's way of protecting itself, but then you get that inflammation flushed out of there because otherwise it lingers, prevents the range of motion, prevents the full function of the muscles, and then inhibits the healing after a while. So yeah, you want to get that swelling out of there through the ice, through the stem, but then once you get that under control and it's not flaring up on you every time you're doing some type of new activity, then that's where you're trying to build the stability back up through the strengthening and just work on stability through balance, proprioception, so you know that when you push off that toe or the ankle or whatever joint you're working with, that you have the confidence in that doing it, and that it's going to be stable when you're going through the activity, to speak in general terms. So you also don't want to go stressing it so much that you restart the inflammation process and then you have a setback and you're kind of just going through this. Hey, I can push it, ramp it up a little bit, but you can never go full 100% like you want to there. So oftentimes those guys don't ever get to go full 100% because it's the NFL. They're playing, a high level and they're always hurt. But we don't want somebody to be playing at 50% when they can be playing at 80% just because you took them through the proper channels to get them better, rather than just saying, let's keep pushing this and gut through it there.
And when there's many dynamic events when it comes to body health and stuff like that. Yep. And I'm not even getting into the HIPAA conversation, but Kyle, what I can tell you is, Matt, and you can help me out with this. Kyle gives you everything you need.
Nothing you don't.
How do you balance the duality of the services you offer? You have a very succinct medical background, but at the same time, you do a great job of journalistic integrity.
I mean, he's a spotter for Dr. Chow. That's awesome.
That's my Chinese food guy. No, he actually is. He does. Shout out China King in Angola. His actual name is Zen Chow. That was not actually a joke. But going back to my question and getting this train back on the tracks, there is some duality in why people like listening to you. You'll never put anything out speculatively about what you think it is. You give a concise medical opinion. How did you learn that? How did you kind of cultivate I want to say your brand of consistency and just pragmatic diagnosis without getting into the fandom, without getting into the hearsay of salacious news and rumors?
I think watching how others on the beat do it. I know Brasky came on later on, but some of the other guys been around for a while. Sacapaccio, Joe Biscaglia, just more of the veteran, beat reporters, and they have a way about going about it. They want to try to present the facts. They don't want to try to go for the crazy rumors, and sometimes there are things that do pop out there.
Yeah.
So I just always kind of surround myself with good people. Just try, hey, how you do this, and there's some the bumps along the way where you try to learn, hey, I can't say it this way, or I have to say it this way. And there's always that, you don't want to put too much doubt in there, but it's like, hey, here's my opinion based off what I have, but you don't want to put something out there and say, hey, it's absolutely this, and you can't convince me otherwise. Cause I've done that before and I've been burned, because sometimes you see what is clear ankle fracture or ACL tear, and it's like, they avoided it. And sometimes you are right later on, but I think it's just trying to, put some level, just try to find the best word to describe it there, but you don't want to put doubt or
but I think there's beauty. There's beauty in the convoluted, just candor you just said is trying to find the best words for it. It's a convoluted space that's sometimes tough to navigate your field. I know we recently we were just with Sal Capaccio, we were just with Eric Wood, we were just with Brownie, and I announced that I was the guy who broke that Tommy Doyle is medically retiring. And we just talked about with Brasky about it. And, while that ended up being true, it was a tough space to navigate because there is emotion. This is how people feed themselves, and players should have their own agency. So you don't want to get out in front of the player and stuff like that. It's definitely a tough space, and I'd like to really celebrate the added utility of which you provide, and you provide for free, and you provide it in spades. So, Matt, I'd like you to pose it to him. What's your hopefulness for this squad if we stay healthy? Because Matt and I always say the best you're always going to feel is when?
First time you get taped.
Right before the first day of training camp. So if all things in a vacuum, we stay healthy, how far do you think this team goes?
Super Bowl champions.
As it stands.
Super Bowl champions. There's no other way back. I mean, they were so close. I mean, they should have beat Kansas City in the AFC title game. They were only missing Taylor Rapp, and of course they lost Christian Benford. But that was the healthiest they've been in years, and they made a hell of a run on a not so great roster. But if they're healthy, I don't see why they can't go win the whole damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be a rebuild. It was a rebuild, but a retool. And they, their number one receiver in the room was Khalil Shakir, followed by Matt Collins. You could see really what their detriment was to them. Up until they traded for Amari Cooper, because they needed wide receiver one to take off, something from Shakir, something from Matt Collins, something from Curtis Samuel, whoever is there. And I agree with you that I truly think if they can get the right players in here, and now draft well and everything, they can build a better roster than they had last year. Especially with somebody like and the next question I'm going to have for you is Joey Bosa. If
that's what slipped my mind, and this is I want to ask Kyle about this. So continue. I'm happy you brought that up.
If he stays healthy, you have a 29-year-old top 3 draft pick originally that
goes back to the fraternization of the brother thing. See how well Nick's doing.
Yeah, I mean he could have upwards of 15 to 17 sacks. No, I'm not going to make another bet about that.
Thank you.
But don't need to put out another thigh dance. That was the most awkward thing I think I've ever done in my life. But no, I mean as far as the Joey Bosa stuff, I mean what can he do to continue to stay healthy? Because I mean, they just didn't. There was some big ones, but more small ones, and so what do you think?
Well, if I can interject before you in that, I mean, when the NFL Player Association released their team grades for the training staff, not to bag on anything, they were 27th in the NFL, and one of the major concerns was inadequate staffing, especially in the physical therapist department. Obviously, less physical therapists, that hampers recovery, hampers prep. Hopefully we can right that ship. I just wanted to interject just with that because that is his lane, physical therapy. little lag on Kyle.
You're up there, Kyle. Kyle,
No.
with us.
Still.
Oh, I froze up for a second. I was trying to do whatever I could, so I missed some of it. I heard last part was the lack of the physical therapist, and that kind of lost me there for a second,
we were
so I
graded out
apologize
as
for that.
27th in the NFL. And one of the things I guess the comment section would be in a shortage of physical therapists, and I was elaborating on, you know better than anybody, shortage in physical therapists that hampers recovery, it hampers preparation. With high ticket individuals like a Vaughn Miller, like even like a Trey White, like with guys that deal with injuries, I'd like to see that cleaned up without bagging on the team, because how integral pain management, load management, and recovery and preparation relies solely on the physical therapists on staff. And it was kind of unsettling to see that we ranked 27th in the player survey.
That is disappointing, because I mean, once again, NFL is $1 billion corporation. I mean, multi-billion dollar. They have the means to take care of this stuff. So it's like, why can't you hire more people on? I know that
especially when the strength coach has got a B+ and the weight room got an A.
Yeah. I mean, you would think that hey, let's hire a few more. I mean, if you go on the NFL athletic trainers page, like if you go on each team's page, you'll see some have 6 trainers, some have 3. It just depends on what is out there. And then what they want to hire. It's like, you would think that, hey, let's bring more and more people on. And I know that there's plenty of knowledgeable people out there. What's that?
Let's bring back Bud Carpenter, Uncle Bud.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sure he'd like to moonlight here and there. Get a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Why not?
Him and Fischetti, yeah.
Yep. But I mean, you would think that they would just say, hey, let's keep bringing on more. I know that they did bring on, I believe, Melissa Figueroa. She was an intern, then they brought her on, and I believe she's left. And I know Denny Connington left for the Panthers. So they've hired somebody else since then, I saw. But like, I want to see them bring in more and more people. And a lot of times the athletic trainers are also dual credentialed as physical therapists, but still, you got
like
3 or 4
Joe
people.
Mika, Denny,
Yep.
yeah.
So Nate Bresky, he's dual credentialed there too, but like, you got 4 or 5 people taking care of upwards of 90 people. Like, at some
Sounds
point,
like you
the
should
quality
throw
is
your name in the
suffer.
hat, dude.
Yeah. Hey, if somebody wants to, take my resume, I'm glad to send it out to them there. So, but I mean, it's important. And you see guys, they do seek outside care because sometimes they need the extra time. I mean, 15, 20 minutes with each person, or if you're missing practice, you might get more time with that particular individual to rehab you. But sometimes guys need the extra time, whether it's massage therapists or chiropractors or physical therapists or whoever else they want to, find outside the practice facility. That's their right. But I mean, sometimes that's what they got to do to invest in their body to make sure they're ready to go on Sundays.
Yeah, and just real quick, can you touch on Bosa's injuries? So if you know some of them and what he can do to prevent those.
He plays super hard. I did have his pulled up, and then I was doing the
There is
freezing
no
issues
off button
there,
on
so.
that guy.
There isn't, which is a good and bad thing. I mean, there's a reason why he was the number 3 overall pick. But I mean, he plays so hard and it catches up with him. I mean, going past the back this year, he had they called it a gluteal strain that caused sciatic nerve pain go down his leg. I thought it was something more, one of the deeper muscles, the piriformis, just based off of the anatomy and everything else like that. But it was probably one of those things that he got hit there somehow. And then everything was just so irritated. And every time he's going to try to push off that leg, he just could never really get things calmed down in there. So it was just irritating week in and week out, and just never. I know he didn't miss many games because of it. He's had, I believe, a broken foot at one point. He's had a broken hand during preseason. He's had, I believe, a core muscle repair. He's just had so many different injuries over the years, just going 100%. And it's not that you don't want a guy going 100%, but sometimes when you're trying to go 100%, something happens, and then they don't know how to taper it back, or just reduce what they're able to do and still play effectively, and then just continue to aggravate everything else there. So he's just had so much stuff over the years that it's like, man, you're just waiting for the next thing to break. It's like you're getting a rusty car on the road. It's like, hey, this thing might get me to Rochester or whatever, but I'm waiting for the wheel to pop off. I'm waiting for the oil light to come on. I'm waiting for something to happen where, I can't finish the trip.
Yeah, do you I don't know if you could dispel or kind of give it the optic into this. I was always told growing up that when you tear your ACL, you're more susceptible to tear the other one because that ACL comes back stronger. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, you are at higher risk to. Yeah, you are at higher risk to tear the other side, just because you are putting more stress on the
I
non-evolved
I
side.
tore my right ACL in college, and then I tore the other one getting out of a cab. So I believe that.
Come on, you need a better story than that, damn it, Jesus.
Well, you should have tuned in for the Alex Brasky thing, because like this is just this is just a poop on me day. So
Yeah.
I interrupted you. Continue.
Well, I mean, you at least have a good excuse for the first one, but a cab, man, okay. I mean, there's been dumb reasons why people have had injuries over the years. I mean, what, Sammy Sosa hurt his back season, yeah. Yeah, Hines, that's right. Yeah, he's out of football. He hasn't played football since then. And it's just incredible how sometimes those injuries can affect, and they're
Carlos
done.
Williams coming on.
Yeah, right. You are at higher risk just because you are requiring. There's a lot of different variables going to that, but oftentimes you're not able to explode off the knee. You're not able to decelerate as well as you could. You can't do all the things you need to off the ACL torn side. So then you start relying on the other side to kind of compensate for that. And then sometimes the over exertion on the other side leads to that. And of course, if you have a contact injury, well, there's nothing you do about that. You get hit there. But most of the ACL tears are non-contact in nature, like 3/4 of them. So you're just at a higher risk for the next 2 years afterward. They're getting better with the recovery rates. I mean, and even the ACL re-tears on the same side is like 10-15%, and it might even be less depending on the literature. And then the other side is upwards of 20% on the other side, but that's when you're factoring females. And then when you have just the male football players, it's like 10-15%. So it's a really low level overall, but I mean, we just do see it. And it's like when it happens, like, well, that was one of that small percentage of points there where it does happen. So thankfully the ACL does re-innervate in terms of getting the nerve nerve fibers to allow you that proprioception and kind of regain that ability to understand where your body's at in space and push off appropriately so your knee's not going to buckle. But that takes some time, greater than a year. So that's why the other side is at more risk, because you're relying so much on the other side while you're recovering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Matt, we're good over that. This was a big adage for me in college as we wrap this up. Where are you with SPAT? I mean, the average NFL team probably spends over $100,000 on pre-wrap adhesive, rigid, the kinesiology tape, specialized tape, for thumbs, turf, and all that. Where are you at with spatting? I wasn't allowed to spat in college, and that's basically based on traumatic injuries and stuff like that. They want to have access to the limbs and stuff like that. Are you a spat guy or anything like that, or is that just an aesthetic thing?
I mean, I'm not doing a whole lot of that because that's more athletic training. I'm just only, unfortunately, a physical therapist. So I'm unfortunately a doctor. Right. Well, there's plenty of athletic therapists or athletic trainers that are physical therapists, like I said, dual credentialed, but my track was only physical therapy. But as for spatting, I understand the need to get to the joint. And if you do have an injury, that's going to restrict your ability to assess the joint there. But some of it can be aesthetic. We've seen that. I believe Khalil Shakir, the first year I went to training camp, I saw him. I'm like, why is he so taped up? And, maybe it is an aesthetic thing, but the tape is only going to do so much for you. I mean, it might provide a little extra stability. Some guys like it because, hey, my ankle's tighter or whatnot. But, like, you can tape the hell out of something and you can only provide so much stability, so much
artificial
protection.
Support,
yeah. So, but it goes with ankle braces. Like, that's probably the biggest place you see that, the ankles and wrists, where you see everything taped up with that. So sometimes guys need that little extra support there, but the braces are going to have better materials and provide more support. But at the same time too, if you start supporting at one joint, that's going to put stress through the other joints there too, and then you're going to be at more risk to have that knee injury when maybe the ankle was going to get most of the force through that, or hey, the wrist is immobile, so is the force going to go up the elbow, up to the shoulder. So I do see the benefits of not taping everything up, but I also see it's like, hey, sometimes you need that extra support, but you still need that flexibility, which is what the tape gives versus a brace or some other type of medical equipment.
I mean, no further questions. The witness can remain. Jeez,
I can keep going, man. I'm sick in the head when it comes to this stuff. It's just something I started doing.
Sick of reporting on? What are you sick of the droll of the off season? Like, what are you sick of? Like, let's loosen it up. What are you sick of? What are you sick of in the in season? What is the most laborious in the off season, man? Like, because you have a hard job, and a lot of people lean on you.
Yeah, it's something I've come to just do just because I've kind of worked it in my things. I've been watching every game. I'm interested. If I'm interested, somebody else is interested. Even they might not be as much into the minutia as I am there. The things that get most annoying or difficult to report on, fracture is a break. People kind of differentiate between that. I'm like, no, it's the same thing. That kind of annoys me a little bit. It does get annoying when you see how many soft tissues injuries are happening, especially early on. It's like, oh, there's another hamstring injury. Oh, there's another calf injury. And it's almost like you're kind of like repeating the same thing over and over again. Hey, there's the stats on this. Here's how long they're going to take. It's like you almost wish you can just kind of copy and paste on that stuff there. And then, the off season is when you start getting information coming in, like whether, for example, Amari Cooper, I thought when we figured out what was going on, he gave us enough nuggets in the media to show what I thought was going on. They said he needed surgery. Okay, you need that. But then we're not getting some of the additional nuggets, or we get it, months later. It's like, well, that would have been helpful in terms of context now, but that's a prerogative of the athlete. The team does not say anything at the time there. So it's just sometimes the information coming in.
Not to interrupt you, but did they know about that injury when they traded for him? I mean, they'd have to, right?
No, that came after. He injured it during the Week 8 game against Seattle. So he said he fell awkwardly on it, and I went back through it. There's only one play early in the game where he fell awkwardly in it because on the wrist, and it wasn't anything crazy. It's something, you trip up your stairs, you trip over something, you kind of hit your wrist. It wasn't anything crazy. I thought he suffered a TFCC tear, which is the cartilage on the outside portion of the hand toward the pinky side, but that would cause weakness in there. That would cause difficulty moving the wrist around, and that usually requires surgery, but they just casted him up, had him miss 2 games and came back. I don't know whether he got surgery afterward. I don't know if that's a true injury because we've had some different crazy things pop up over the time, but great on him to play through that, but that did affect him a little bit as he went through. But just sometimes not having the full picture does complicate things. Then you're like, well, I think this could be it. And then you're kind of waiting, and it's like, oh, I was right, or oh, I was wrong. But that's the prerogative of the team, of the players, because there's competitive advantage when you're not saying, hey, this is what this guy's dealing with there. So that might be the most annoying thing, but that's not something I can control.
Yeah, it is the parallels and the the territory of the job. Yeah, Kyle, we got to thank you coming out. Hey, you coming to Bocce this year?
As long as it works out my schedule, I don't see why not. There, you said June 22nd, correct?
June 22nd. Yep.
All right, I'll have to check my schedule and make sure. I think the kids are getting done with school around that time.
I'll buy the hot dogs.
My kid just wants to eat snacks and watch Netflix on the phone, and I'll walk around the players.
Isn't it amazing? Like at my bocce tournament, watching like Jim Kelly and watching watching like Morris and watching all those guys, and it's sans the great equalizer. Everybody sucks.
Yeah.
So we got to thank you for coming on, Matt. And we'll round this up. We had a great show tonight. Between Kyle, get really into the presentation of why it's worthwhile picking up on newsstands the Bills Digest. These are 2 of the penultimate guys that you should be listening to through the offseason, through the season, and through the postseason. Matt, I throw it to you.
Yeah, and real quick before you get going here, Kyle, tell us a little bit about what you have going on, where people can find you other than Bills Digest and things like that, so they can kind of stay up to date with you.
What are the good
now,
ones?
during the season, whenever.
You can find me pretty much everywhere. I mean, for socials, I'm on
Nice.
Twitter, X, I'm on Facebook, Reddit, Instagram. You can find all my written work there from bangedupbills.com. You can find me directly at bangedupbills.com. And then, I'm working with Cover One right now. I'm doing some draft stuff, just trying to tabulate all the draft injuries. Yep. Greg's a great guy. Aaron, Eric, the whole crew over there. They've been a huge help in what I've done over the years. So I'm doing some draft work for them. I've done that every year. You might already mentioned the Bills Digest with Alex. I'm very thankful that he brought me on to do some work for him. Do the podcast with Locked On Bills with Joe Marino. That's more during the regular season, but you'll see me on during the off season as things come, especially on the draft and other pertinent information.
Should we ask the celebrity question?
Sure.
Have you got to be honest? There's no narcissism here. Have you been spotted in public? Has anybody come up when you're at a Chili's throwing back a couple Fiesta wrappers with your kid and everything like that? Have they been like, hey,
that has come up a little bit. Yeah.
You're that guy that reports on the doom and gloom.
Yeah, I've had a few people like, hey, like, I'm out somewhere, and it might be like a Bills event. Like, hey, oh yeah, you go Kyle. They put it together. I did have one patient that noticed me. Most of my clientele is unfortunately older, but I had one guy who goes, I'm trying to place you. I can't whatever. And then I came back the next visit. He goes, you're banged up Bills. I was like, yeah. I'm like, do you listen to Locked On Bills? He goes, yeah, I love it. I'm like, all right, that's the first. So It's cool when it get recognized. Yeah, it's neat because I'm like, okay, my work precedes me, but I'm glad you're still listening, and that's going to help the buy-in. Hey, you talk about this stuff. Okay, I'm going to listen to whatever the hell you say. So.
And not that it's validating, but I think your work is validating. It's something definitely here at the Two Champions Network we rely on, and that's the reason that we had you on, and you were so gracious to accept that. So check out Kyle at Banged Up Bills. You can catch him on the Cover One Network. You can catch him with Bills Digest and with Joe Marino. Kyle, thanks for so much for hopping on, man. Truly,
guys,
added value.
It was awesome talking to you tonight. Willing to come on again, and go Bills.
See you soon, man. Appreciate it.
Go Bills. Thank you, Kyle. So we do want to touch on some other things.
We're going
here.
long.
Yeah, going a little long tonight, but I mean everybody else on our network does. So let's do it once in a while.
Hey, in the words of Roger Staubach, throw it deep always. So this segment we're going to touch on something that's happening next week. It happens March 30th to April 1st in Palm Beach, Florida, and they're set to address several significant issues. Including proposed rule changes, ownership transitions, and initiatives related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is the ownership meeting happening. We got some big ones that I do want to touch on. The first one, Matt, I bring to you. One of the most salacious is the tush push ban. The Green Bay Packers have proposed banning the tush push play, famously utilized, by the Bills, by the Eagles. Due to concerns over injury risks and gameplays. This proposal kind of seems like it's gaining momentum. Matt, where are you at with that?
I'm perfectly fine if they ban the tush push from if it's a direct player from directly behind the quarterback.
I always thought it was aiding the runner.
I agree. Like, when did that rule change? Because
aiding the runner is pulling, and this is pushing.
Well,
I don't know if this is a physics discussion, but
I want to know when that rule actually changed. That they were allowed.
I think
to do
it was implementation of tactic, not the rule change.
It's not even that. Because one of the most famous pictures of all time is in the Green Bay Dallas game in the Ice Bowl. The guy going in the end zone making,
Also, the team that's proposing this is the team that got beat by this.
No, they were the ones that won that game.
Oh, right. Sorry.
No,
conversely.
but like the guy literally, one of the most famous pictures is him throwing up his arms. And he said, I threw up my arms to show that I was not touching the quarterback going through. I want to know when that rule actually changed and they were able to go behind the quarterback and start pushing them.
Yeah, so that's one of my bullet points. Also, overtime rule modification. Conversely, the Eagles suggested applying playoff overtime rules across the whole spectrum, Matt. Those are going to apply to regular season games, ensuring both teams have at least one possession. We've been on the losing end of this, ensuring both teams have one possession, extending the overtime period also from 10 to 15 minutes. And I think that gets done.
Let's put it out there. The Bills were not the reason this rule changed originally.
You don't have to assign blame on teams that are subjected to the shortcomings of a dynamic game, because the game changes. I mean, look at how running backs are valued in the first round. Look at any NFL stat in the 60s about how prevalent passing was. It's devoid.
Right now,
game's dynamic, not static, right, Matt?
We might only have one running back go in the first round. I mean, yes, Omarion Hampton might be the second one, but I mean, there's not a lot of people that have a projection of two running backs going in the first round. But no, I think it's about time that the overtime rules exceed into go kind of leak over into the regular season.
There is no justification to have a different rule set in the playoffs versus how you play the game 18 weeks before, 17 weeks before.
Right.
Run me through that. The rules change. If anything, if you want to tailor it to viewership, making the game more exciting, the fans are already there.
Right.
They're already watching the playoffs, so that doesn't hold water with me. So we checked that, the overtime rule. Another one, Maddie, throw it to you. Kickoff changes. Competition committee proposes establishing a dynamic kickoff rules. Trialed last season.
I think.
Well, let me finish. Moving touchbacks to the 35-yard line. I think they went into the barber shop, they asked for a trim up, and they got a buzz cut because there were no kickoff returns last year. We propose touchbacks going to the 35-yard line to encourage returns while addressing still player
Well,
safety
there was
concerns.
some, there was definitely kickoff returns.
Oh, but the delta on that was huge.
I mean, I only remember like a couple. I know DJ Dallas in the first game that we watched last year against Arizona. The ones that we watched against Arizona, DJ Dallas, the Bills went up by like 10 or 14 or 13. And DJ Dallas like turned around and returned the kick. So I mean, I think them moving up to the 35-yard line for kickoffs out of the back of the end zone is going to again provide them with a reason to return the ball
while also keeping it within the vacuum of player safety.
Correct.
So we checked out the kickoff rule. No, number 6, replay review expansion. Would you guess this is about the Sky Judge? Because it's nope, it's not.
What
Replay
does he
expansion.
do?
What?
What does he do?
Collect a check, and I don't know. He's like an SEC compliance officer.
Well, I mean, this is
It's like no news is good news. Can you tell me how many games? No. Tell me how many games you watched this year where the Sky Judge wasn't referenced, but he was utilized. 2?
A couple. I mean, but
no. How many? Not a couple. That's not a number.
I would say maybe 3 or 4. I mean, out of all of the games that we watched.
Yeah.
But no, and that's the thing with the Sky Judge. I mean, we sit here and say that he's doesn't do anything.
He's officially
like that,
the 8th member of the crew. Not really.
But also on top of that too, I mean, like they did use him, but it seemed like as the season,
But, they use guys like Gene Sarator for commentary more than the guy in the fucking official standing position.
Yeah, no, I hear that, but I mean, it felt like as the season went on, they started using the Sky Judge more and more, but then we're not referencing it to find out where that was coming from,
or where his jurisdiction is defined.
Yeah.
So moving on from that, because that's obviously something I feel strongly about. Replay review expansion, expanding the scope of instant replay to correct on-field decisions regarding specific penalties is under consideration. Let's stop there. Let's start with, we don't need to trial putting a chip in the ball to measure first downs. They do it in the EPL. We have some semblance of that technology in the
Tennis,
MLB. Do you want me to do the Home Depot bit? Because I'll do the Home Depot bit. Why do we have 2 2x4s attached with a zinc-coated copper chain measuring first downs manually?
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah. No, but I mean,
Moving on. Wait, hey.
Well, okay.
Moving on my ass, dude. It's gambling.
But doesn't this work to make gambling markets more efficient when it's not a human error decision and it's binary, this or that?
Where's the money at?
Okay, that's not an answer.
That is the answer. Where's the money at?
Oh, so you think there's fraud in the NFL?
It's the same as the WWE, my man.
You can't bet on the WWE.
You
technically
can't,
can.
dude. It's an entertainment business. It's legal. It's
But
licensed. Hold on. It's licensed as an entertainment business. Do you have any thoughts after that? You fucking fool.
Come on.
So anyway, this is the last time you're going to see Super Movers Ty. I'd like to announce that he is on indefinite suspension. We're going to go back to a big one that kind of goes into what I'm saying with private equity.
Well, do me a favor real quick. Can you go back to the last one about the penalties? So certain penellies.
That actually was, I got to be honest with you, he's reinstated. That was kind of funny.
Yes, that was.
Yo, I'm like. Yo, I was so mad at you, but that was kind of funny, and I will give you that. You're reinstated. So, going back to the rules, what on replay?
No, the one about penalties.
What enhancing the scope of what can be analyzed?
Correct.
What ones do you want?
No, I mean, is it give? like any more than
This is according to Reuters and how they address it. Once again, this is privy information. We were not going to get in within the hollowed walls of the ownership meeting, as I do not have that many M's or B's behind my net worth. Expanding the scope of instant replay to correct on-field decisions regarding specific penalties under consideration to enhance efficiency. Actually, that's a bunch of fluff.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like that.
So,
like
yeah, so tell me what you hope they address.
I hope that they address.
And I'll throw it to Super Producer Ty. What do you hope they address in terms of what can be reviewable?
Well,
Matt, I start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they address things like not necessarily going on a replay of a pass interference or anything like that, because we saw that didn't work. That extended the game way too much and whatnot. But I think that if they allowed the Sky Judge to like have a conversation and say, this didn't happen or this did, because it's not college. It's not a 15-yard penalty. It literally, like, you have quarterbacks in the NFL that can throw 70, 80
Well,
yards.
they are talking about eliminating automatic first downs. Another proposal, that's from the Lions. Listen,
but that's not a holding.
No, seeks to remove automatic first downs as penalties for defensive holding in illegal contact.
Correct.
As well.
Correct, but that's not a pass interference where it's.
But they're the most game-changing dynamics when those penalties occur.
They are, but
to get to gambling. Yeah.
But what I'm saying, though, is on a pass interference, the quarterback literally throws the ball up. You see it multiple times during the season. Russell Wilson throws one of his sky balls, and he gets, so if they could, kind of
free throw, free money, free throw.
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean that's.
But also that tethers to an offside free play too. That's I think that's good and just.
But I mean, I get it, but
if you commit a pre-snap procedural foul, you have to deal with the consequences. Yes,
no.
And
that's pre-snap. I'm talking pass interference specifically, where in college it's a 15-yard penalty. Automatic 15-yard penalty.
Mm-hmm.
That, obviously if it's 10 yards, then it's only going 10 yards. But if it's an automatic 15-yard penalty because it's 40 yards down the field, they're not.
So you think they're just playing a game of Battleship?
It's basically, yeah. And if they throw the ball up and it's not a pass interference, allow the Sky Judge to be like, whoa, hey, hang on, let's
not allow him to do anything.
I mean, but that's what he's there for, is the ability to kind of take that on, and take that on and make sure the game is being called correctly. But I also agree, like, hey, you missed this holding call that is game-changing.
Well, holding happens every play. I think there's a big tit for tat in that thing. But the Lions did, present the elimination of automatic first downs. The Lions are also presenting playoff seating adjustments. After reading from the call sheet here, the Detroit Lions have proposed allowing wildcard teams to be seated higher than division winners based solely on their regular season records, aiming to reward overall performance.
And that one's weird.
No, I'm going to go to him. So in a week, AFC, I don't know. Who's the weakest AFC, would you say right now, going into it? AFC
South.
Broncos.
AFC South.
Yeah.
So if we go to battle, if we go to battle with the Patriots and we win the division at 16-1.
Sure.
And the Patriots lose the division at 15-2, but an AFC South team wins their division at 9-8. They're proposing that the second place. Well, listen, they're proposing the second place finisher that has the overall better regular season record is season higher than the division winner. Where are you with that? So let me read it back. Bills win the division at 16-1. Patriots lose our division Patriots lose our division at 15-2.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, I think the reseeding needs to happen. I really do. I mean,
because you can't mail it in just because you know you're going to win the division.
And it's funny because the Detroit Lions are the ones that are proposing this, and they're the ones that finished over the Vikings last year, and they're the ones that got knocked down to
they were absolute ass.
Because they played
the Vikings
they had to play a what? They had to play the second seed or the third seed.
Yeah.
It's if all these games matter, if we hate sitting starters in the later weeks to preserve the health of a playoff.
The Bills were still beating the ass, and Tom Brady was still with the Patriots. You know he'd be calling the league saying, "Hey, I want this."
Well, he might be doing that now with the Raiders.
From the Bills' standpoint, it's like, you can suck my dick from the back, bro.
Boy. And that's why we don't have people on camera. The last one here is one that I think it's an old boys club. It's the transfer of Texans ownership. We're getting rid of the Jack Eastery things, but I also think it also tethers into the private equity conversation. Texans.
Yeah, I'll let you handle that.
Yeah, I'm going to handle this. Just my professional acumen is in finance. If anybody knows my real life, check me out on LinkedIn. I will deny your request for doing any further business. But the Texans are doing further business with a vote to change ownership, kind of trivial, between Janice McNair to her son Cal McNair. It's interesting. There's a transition of ownership. They want to keep the pipeline going. They like owning the Texans, one of the youngest franchise. Are they the youngest franchise? The Texans? Yeah, it's not the Titans. It's the Texans.
It's the Texans, yeah.
Right. They want to transfer ownership because, it is hard. It's going to be hard to sell these teams. If you call the biggest brands in sporting, Manchester United, the Lakers, the Yankees, and the Cowboys, who's got $8.6 billion liquid and beyond, because you got to pay the roster to purchase these. I think this is a good thing. This is gonna be validated, but there's a private equity conversation, and it's gonna be an ongoing conversation because as we sign these Amazon Prime TV deals, the Nickelodeon TV deals, Netflix TV deals, there's a concentrated pipeline that you're gonna make money. When people are shocked that David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, a disciple of Goldman Sachs volatility trading, he started Appaloosa trading. I don't want it to dilute competition because just because you have it, you don't have to spend it. Shout out Terry Picola and the Sabres. It's a business, man. Because I'm a businessman. Yeah. We have private equity. It's a long conversation. I might do a separate podcast on that because this kind of is my wheelhouse, but expect to see it more. You don't have to hear from Derek Ravel that those conversations are happening. They've been long-standing. Right. The Jordan Company, the Brewing Group, Susquehanna, Sequoia, A17Z. They're all kicking the tires because the NFL is such a diverse and palpable balance sheet. It's the reason why we're expanding the games to Dublin. Where else? Madrid. Germany. Where else? Brazil.
Yeah.
London.
Because it's about making money, for them, and that's really what it comes down to. But I mean, expanding the game, I guess it is twofold.
I think it's expanding, not growing, because you're expanding viewership, not necessarily cultivating growing fans.
But I mean, and this is probably a conversation for another podcast.
Sure.
Later on, maybe during the dog days of the off season here. But like, I would not be surprised to see an international team in probably the next 10 years.
I would. What, Canada?
No,
Stop it. We'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk another time.
Yeah, that's definitely. But I mean, it's. I truly do think that potentially international team is something that. Whether you do an international division and add like.
We're talking a lot about the future, Maddie.
Yeah.
Tell them about the future. Who we got coming on next?
Yeah.
Next week, Mr. AA.
Yes, Alec Anderson. Next week,
Chris Hogan,
and a few more later on. I mean, we got the NFL draft show coming up at Elliot Apollo's first night of the draft.
Mm-hmm. Can I take my victory lap yet about Benford?
Go ahead.
F you, Pigpen.
That was it. That was literally all you had.
I'm in a good place right now.
That's okay. So definitely keep it at Do Champions. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube,
everything you need.
Twitch. DoChampions.com now.
Hyphen.
Yeah, do-champions.com now.
We're with pronouns on this podcast. Ty, you got anything to wrap us up with?
Let's go, baby.
I got it.
Do good, live good,
feel good.
Josh Allen said.
Absolutely. And to round the show out with a nice little video, we're creating a little mural montage of everybody that come to the cast to play us out. We want to thank Alex Brasky for coming on. We want to thank Mr. Kyle Trimble. That was a fun one. That was a long one.
Yeah.
Longer than
hour and 48. I mean, it's almost 2 podcasts.
That tops my that tops my personal best in my personal life and and my podcasting life. So.
I mean, we did a 4-hour show last year for the draft, so definitely keep it with you champions for any of our great shows. We got Jake coming up tomorrow night, Buffalo Blueprint. He's got Carlos Williams on.
Is that tomorrow?
That's tomorrow night,
dude. That's gonna be cool.
That's gonna be a fun one.
I mean, I'm all for pumping the tires about how great I am and how amazing this network is for only being a year old. But Carlos, I know exactly. Ty just goes. I know it's not a shtick. It's how I feel. But Carlos Williams is a tune.
Carlos Williams is a big one. Then on
first
Monday,
podcast he's done.
Yeah, Monday you got No One to Blame. Wednesday you got Coast to Coast with Beyond and Whittle 2K.
The almighty
Curtains.
No. Say it right. The almighty Whittle 2K. And because probably at this point it's just curtains.
And then Thursday night, Chasing Data, and then we'll be back. I'll be back this week. Real quickly, probably one of the biggest Bills fans I know. I was at his funeral today.
Take some time. This is your moment. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Talk about him real quick because we always do this.
I mean, he taught me,
what's his name?
How to Grizz. Steve Stockwell, Grizz. Definitely, shout out to him. Know he's looking down. Know he's gonna be in God's ear, trying to, not to get religious or anything like that, but he's gonna be trying to convince the big guy to, give the Bills one. So definitely had a lot of fun there.
He's probably so excited to meet Tim Russert.
I mean, everybody.
He's so excited to meet Tim Russert.
Everybody was in Bills gear, and it was just a great ceremony for him and everything like that. Great.
And how we lead life is sometimes how we exit with death.
Yep. Very, not about himself at all, and it was a great time. Not that a funeral was a great time, but I mean, just seeing all different parts of the family and his family, and seeing how much the pastor talked about the dash that everybody gets, but what you do with that dash. That's clever. What you do with that dash is and he did a lot. And respect to him. He was he taught me how to the smoking meat type stuff and all that stuff. So part of the reason between my uncle Ted, my uncle Keith,
good stuff.
As why I'm a Bills fan. So Grizz, shout out to you. You'll be missed. Definitely by me, by all of our family, and we'll definitely have some pig roast for you. So,
good stuff, man. Catch Alex Brasky on the on the Bills Digest. We're bringing it to the screen right now. Pick it up wherever they sell it. Catch Kyle Trimble, and we'll play out. We'll add him to the mural. Nothing but illustrious guys. Matt, good to be seen.